Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Coffee with Jim and James. We're taking maybe a little bit of a different path, and James will explain a little bit more in a second here, but we've had some great success with sharing the 7 habits over the last year, actually unprecedented feedback. And we just started to think about other things that we could talk about more on a personal note, as opposed to a lot of the industry experts that we bring to this platform. And therefore, that's the reason for this episode today. James, you want to first welcome. Good to see you this morning, my friend.
You too, brother.
Yeah.
Yeah, this has kind of been a brainchild, I guess, that naturally has come about as we've went through this past year. And then obviously with this series, with our success from 7 Habits, we really had a lot of engagement. And so we were excited about that. But this one kind of hits a little closer to home, maybe with some people. And maybe it's a topic, and we've talked about it a lot, I feel like, between the two of us, personally with folks and ourselves, but also on the show. And it's really about mental health, Jim.
Yes. Emphasis on health.
Yeah, right. Yeah, for sure. Being mentally healthy and how to go about that, because that's some of the reasons we started this show, Jim, was for our own mental health. And so we're starting a series that we're calling Get Out of Your Own Head, or Get Out of Your Head. We haven't decided. We'll get out of your head, I think, is what it's going to be. This being the first episode, really kind of pulling back the curtain on it. And it's going to be mental health based. And we hope that we can reach people that need this message, that and honestly, Jimmy, kind of break that stigma that comes with mental health or discussing mental health. How many mental health discussions have you had in your lifetime in the industry? Think about that. And some people more than others, because we're wired that way. But honestly, we're trying to break down some of those walls, because honestly, we're concerned about people in our industry, our friends, ourselves, our family, our coworkers, everybody. And I think that goes with the roots of this show. How do we help spread a message that's positive and real and impacts people? And we say that a lot. Jimmy, you say it a lot.
Right.
And so that's really the kind of the basis around Get Out of Your Head.
Yeah. And to bring just it's funny, James, I don't know if you heard
that thunder?
That was a Florida thunderstorm. It's coming down.
At the remnants of Elsa.
But anyways, excuse me. But the mental health, I think
maybe we shouldn't be talking about this. Or maybe we should. Maybe that's how we're
maybe the good Lord.
Maybe we need to speak louder.
Yeah. No, I think it's important. I think there is so many stigmas. And, myself, who just celebrated my 10-year sobriety, there was a time when people that are fighting like an alcohol addiction feel shame and they hide it and all that. And then when I, finally kicked it 10 years ago and, turned that shame into more fame. And I don't mean fame as in famous, but more so where I want to share my story, because if one person could just say, hey, how did you quit? That type of thing. And there's so much involved, and I am not a professional. You are not a professional in that.
Sir.
We are just lay people.
Let's make that really clear now. Okay. Jim and I are not trained professionals. We are not having a mental illness discussion. That is not what this is about. Now, I will say that obviously there is mental illness and we'll talk about that a little bit later, but if you are someone that struggles with anxiety, depression, whatever it might be, right? Obviously it's going to, skyrocket those types of things even more. Your mental health will follow suit, in the ebbs and flows. But as Jimmy said, this series almost is as much about us as you guys. And we're not trained professionals, but what we are trained at is we're really good friends. And we're really close coworkers, and we're industry colleagues. And we have our own stories. And that's really the why behind it all, is how can we get out there and touch those folks that really need it right now?
And we've done it, though. Over the last year, you and I have had I couldn't even, I mean, dozens of conversations about it. And it's interesting. Our conversations are, I think during the time of COVID, when people, are feeling a lot of angst and a lot of uncertainty and weirdness and all those type of feelings you have, I think you start to, open up. And especially on this platform, it's always been easier to, maybe speak or not to speak. But in this platform, if I don't want to talk about something, I'm like, James, I'll be right back, and take
Or
off.
I'll just, if I'm going to start crying in my hand, you know what I mean? I mean, that's reality though, right? Behind the keyboard, everybody has a little bit more bravery, right? That's the trolls out there on the internet.
Yeah,
If they weren't behind a keyboard, they probably wouldn't say half the things they
yeah,
did. But you're right in the setting. Look, guys, if you would have told me that I would be talking to Jim Shower about uh, mental health advice last year, I probably would have told you to go get mental health advice. But we were each other's kind of general counsel, and we spent a lot of time together, obviously because of the show, but also we worked very closely together over the past year. And so we all have our battles, Jimmy. You mentioned substance abuse on your side, and we
yep,
all we've heard your story, and I'm sure we'll dive into that deeper in this series.
for sure.
But when we're talking, we did mention mental illness earlier and how it really can exponentially affect, your mental health.
Sure.
And it doesn't matter if it's stress, anxiety, substance abuse, ADHD, depression, eating disorder. I mean, the list goes on and
Sleep,
on, right?
sleep disorder.
Sleep.
I've had more conversations with people over the last 9 months about, man, I just can't sleep anymore. And it's like people are like, oh, it's just this. And I'm like, think about it. What's going on in your life? What are you doing at 3 a.m? Well, I'm thinking about this, this, and this. I'm like, okay, how do you peel back that onion and go back to a place to where you can understand? First of all, talking about it is the first thing because you're getting it out, right? But that's
Absolutely.
really given a lot of conversations of just being open about that, and that's a hard thing to do. And that's what I'm
And
trying to do today.
right,
People at least the idea that it's okay to talk about this stuff. People aren't judging. Well, good people will not judge. Good people will want to help you, right?
right. And Jim, I mean, all those things I mentioned as far as, mental illness is concerned, none of those things define us, right? I mean,
Right.
if you're somebody that struggles with any of those things, it doesn't make us bad people. We're not bad parents, co-workers, friends. It's something that we have to work through and deal with. But um, Jimmy, your story has helped me kind of work through my own battles, not in substance abuse necessarily, but the same kind of process, no matter what it is, being conscious of it, being more mindful, being diligent and deliberate about what you're doing. And I think that's where this series is going to be interesting, right? Because again, like we said before, we are not experts. We are not giving you
No.
advice on mental illness, but we are able to provide our own testimony, which is so powerful, right? There's no telling, Jimmy, how many people have been impacted by your testimony, right? That you're so, like you said, the fame, turning that shame into fame.
Yeah.
That's really what we hope in, sharing some of our stories and struggles. A good one, Jimmy, that I'm going to reference right now is, so full transparency, our show, as we are coming out of the pandemic more and more, and we're traveling, things like that, it's hard to sustain the pace that we've set for ourselves. And
Oh yeah.
um,
Definitely.
I mean, in the pandemic, it was easy because we were sitting around kind of scratching our heads a little bit, trying to figure out how we were going to do it. But what we decided was to move to more almost, I would say, almost quarterly recording. Okay.
Monthly.
Every other month, whatever it is. Like
Yeah.
we haven't set the cadence 100% yet. We're still working through it, but it allows us to record a whole bunch at one time, maybe 2 or 3 day stretch or a week. So we had our first one, maybe 8 weeks ago, something, a couple of months ago, or last one, yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we were starting recording maybe 10 or 11, Jimmy, on a Monday morning.
Monday morning.
And
Yep.
so Jim and I set time aside beforehand to, kind of set the stage, get ready, go over who's going to be on this week. Every day we had, pre-production meetings kind of thing. And so, what was it? Probably about me and Jimmy wake up early, speaking of sleeping disorders.
Yeah.
We wake up really early and he's in Florida. So he's perfect for me because by the time I'm up in Central, he's an hour ahead. So we both kind of had an anxiety attack that Monday because we really didn't feel the levity of how much work we really had to do in that time. Up until that point, probably the most we had recorded in a day would have maybe been 2, if that, right? Because a lot of times if we had multiples, they'd be spread out in a week. And so we both kind of let the stress wear on us over the weekend. And as we rolled into Monday morning, we kind of both hit rock bottom at the same time. And we had to get on and just kind of get our lives together in order to record. And we say that because, again, this series is going to be about telling our stories and the tips and things that help us kind of work through it. It's not about, mental illness. It's really about our stories and how we can bring it. And what better catalyst? That's when we realized that we need to bring this to people, because if we're fretting this much over a podcast, imagine people with more important roles, people out on pipelines and the integrity of pipelines. And, imagine the folks that are over the IT security right now over pipelines, right? Can you imagine what they're thinking about at 3 a.m? And you imagine the anxiety attacks and stress that add up on those. So, that became a catalyst for us to kind of start this series. And here we are.
And I'm glad we're doing it because, you often say to me and say to everybody, your big hashtag is be brave is one of them. Besides let's go, be brave.
Yeah.
And I tell you, it's easy to say be brave. It's much different to, walk, and to take the step and to come out of your, I don't want to say uncomfort, but we've lived with, society saying you should do this and you shouldn't do that and this, that, and the other thing. And Lord knows I'm a good example of that, because a lot of people say, why do you talk about your alcoholism? I'm like, why not?
Have to.
Feel like me as a person? You couldn't tell I was drinking when I drank because I hid it so well. So what's the difference? Right. You're like, oh, it shows you're weak. I'm like, really? I said, try getting sober, that'll show you who's strong or not. Right. Stay strong and to stay sober, those are.
And Jimmy, I'm sure, and, this is probably for another episode, but I'm sure those times for you when, you told me at one point, kind of the day you decided I was going to, you were already recovering, but what I mean, when you decided you were going to stop the shame and start, the fame kind of telling your story and not saying, oh, I'm on medication, or, I can't drink today because I got a doctor's appointment in the morning, or I got to travel, or whatever the thing is, right? To the day you decided I'm going to make this part of my story.
Yeah.
And that's, there's got to be other folks right in that spot of, maybe you've been dealing with substance abuse for a long time and you decided 6 months ago that you were going to be sober, and you have been. And maybe it takes Jim's story to be the catalyst for you to say, it is okay to go out and make that a part of who I am, right? But Jimmy, I'm going to ask you a question real quick.
All right, sir.
Why do you feel like right now this is so important?
Oh, us and we talk to 100, 200 people a week in the industry, right? Our friends, our colleagues, relationships. And I just can't tell you how many times I've talked to somebody that they're maybe, oh, I'm down today. This COVID thing, when's it ever going to end? The this and that and the other thing. And then you hear the little triggers like I just can't sleep, or I just feel anxious, or I just, and there's so many of these little things out there. And I have to tell you though, James, for me, this last year, you and I just having conversations helped so much. Not that we solve anything, But for me, just to have a springboard or a person on a bouncing board that I can talk to about things where I feel comfortable. And I think that's why now I think so many people are unconsciously incompetent, meaning if you know that whole thing, consciously competent, blah, 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 blah. They just don't know what they don't know. And that may even be about themselves that they don't know. They don't know that they're under stress. And I've used this example the other time. We've all been to those classes where they're like, okay, you're in a safe room and you're all talking about, so when you get under stress, count to 10 and breathe deep. And when you're not stressed, it's easy to do. But
and you're like, hey man, I can't spend my whole work day breathing out my nose and counting to 10.
But I don't do it when I'm stressed is the problem. I forget about it, and I think when people are anxious right now, or they're under stress, or they're high anxiety, or whatever the case is, they may not recognize it themselves. And sometimes it's good when you just talk to somebody and somebody can say to you, or I can say to you, James, are you all right? You just seem a little off today. Can I help with anything? And that's a hard part because all of a sudden, when we first did this year or so back, it's like, testing the water. Can I talk to him? Can I not? And then, it just builds. And I can't tell you how much it, just even before recording today, you and I we just talked about life. I mean, nothing, we just talked.
It had really nothing to do with this episode, but everything to do with this episode, right?
Yeah, it did, it didn't, but it,
for sure.
It had to do with having that friend. So that's why, in my opinion, that's why now. So.
And I'm sure a lot of people are thinking, what are these two knuckleheads going to do for us, right? I mean, and I don't disagree. Well, I mean, what have we done for you for the last year, right? I mean, we've been here. We're a constant.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we're somebody that you can reach out to. I just put a post out on LinkedIn this past week that whenever we recorded this, right? That some people probably saw that I said, I'd been down for the last couple of months mentally.
Yeah.
And if I was down, I knew there were others. And if anybody needed it, to reach out, basically. And I was so not surprised. That's a terrible word. I was so proud of how many people reached out to me, not for help, which is the funny thing, which I'm still here to help me.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah,
I got emails and messages and text messages and comments on that post from all kinds of folks. Some people I didn't even know.
Yeah.
That said, hey man, you may not know me, you might. Yeah. We connected a long time ago. I've kept up with you and I saw your post today, and man, if you need anything, let me know. And I was floored by it. And again, to just confirm that we're doing the right things, it felt like, we had talked about the mental health series you and I had, and then to hear and see that in action, it just told me, man, we're doing the right things, right? And
that's why we're doing it, right? I mean, we want to help you. If we can help one person and that person helps another one, that's why we're doing it. And let me ask you a question. A lot of people may or may not know this. You're our brand guru. I mean, James is, when we say creative, that's an understatement. But
that's a big word, guru. I mean, it's a little big word.
But here's the weird part. He's over brand, so all the creative, and he's also over HR, which to me, it just makes my brain go, does not compute, yeah. So,
because I'm a liability, that's why. I'm sure there's some people right now that are going to go in the comments and say, I think I have mental health issues because James is apparently over HR now.
Yeah.
that doesn't make any sense. Yeah.
It certainly helped me, and we'll just leave it at that. Anyways, tips or tricks. I mean, we're going to dive into this series much deeper. But what I call you up, James, and I say, hey, I'm just struggling right now. I can't sleep. I can't eat. I'm gaining weight. I'm losing weight. I'm up. I'm down. What advice would you give me? If I were just.
Yeah. And Jimmy, I think as we go through this series, obviously we'll get more specialized with what we're talking about. But again, we're not medical professionals. We're not going to go down that route. However, there are things that we do, in our situations that do help us. And sometimes it's just being cognizant of it, right? and speaking it into existence, whatever it might be. But I'll tell you, you'll probably hear this every single episode front and back, bookended. But a lot of what we're trying to do in the human resources world is just constantly share information, because Jimmy used to be in sales. You know that world. We're all in sales, right? Let's take it in that perspective.
Yeah.
We always say, you keep in that constant contact with folks because you never know when they're going to have that moment, right?
Yep.
Be that Tuesday afternoon that their system blows up, or that one support person just doesn't support them right. And if you're the one that picked up the phone and called at that moment, you suddenly have an opportunity, right?
Yeah.
And so from an HR standpoint, I'm gonna put on my HR hat, as uncomfortable as it might feel. And I would just say, we're going to put out a cadence of messages that point you to resources, okay? Whether it's internal to your company, being your HR department. A lot of people don't know that's even HR's problem, right?
Right.
And I think that's important for us to do. The second being, there's other resources that we can provide, but again, your medical, pointing you to your medical professionals, because a lot of people don't know that their healthcare covers behavioral, right? So that's an easy move, right? And then the other is just creating a network of people, and we're going to use our audience, really.
Yeah.
So right now, if you're watching this and you're one of these people that feel as passionate about Gemini as Gemini, I would urge you to comment. And then we're not trying to get engagement. Don't freak out. Leave a comment and say, hey, anybody that needs somebody, just shoot me a message. Here's my email, shoot me a message on LinkedIn. If you want to be part of that network, I think that's where it starts for us. I mean, I think that's why we're doing it, Jim, is so that we can hopefully build a network of people that are pinging people when they need it, right? I mean, again, I can't touch all of my network every day. But if you're doing it and the next person's doing it, we're just checking on people and doing that. I think that's what we're trying to do, is just be there in that moment.
Yep. And I absolutely herald everything that you just said. And speaking on behalf of you and I, people reaching out to us,
Absolutely.
all the better. I do want to hit, though, on if you're fortunate enough to have health insurance, if you're fortunate enough to work for a company as an HR department, some of these things you may not even be aware are available. And especially in today's age, I've learned that through our health plan, you can do virtual sessions, with a licensed professional. Very easy.
Again, we talk about the being safe behind the keyboard thing.
Yeah.
For some people, that's really daunting to go into an office for that.
Sure, it could be stressful.
Look, man, I'm a dude.
Yeah.
I've been, I've been told my whole life not to cry in front of girls, I mean, really. And then you're like, what? I got to go talk to somebody and give them my soul and my heart and my mind. And that's daunting. But when you can be like this, I mean, look at us. Who would have thought? Who would have thought we'd be this brave, right? But you're right. That's a good point. That there's virtual visits out there. Jimmy and I both have talked about that. There's a lot of options.
Yeah.
And we just got to put that information out.
And I think we're going to explore that, going forward. James, what should our audience expect going forward? I have a couple thoughts. What's your thought with that?
Yeah. I mean, we're going to play it by ear.
Okay.
I mean, like we always do.
Yeah, we do.
Like we're doing today, right? We're going to get out there and, we're going to be safe about it. We're going to do what needs to be done. But we don't know if this is a 4-part series or 27. I mean, when we get going, we may find out this might be our new show. Might be its own podcast.
Yeah.
But I think our audience will tell us, just like they have over the past year. And, they told us they love 7 Habits. So we kept going. They, love this or love this angle. So we'll craft that feedback into what we're doing. And again, hopefully build a network of people that have broken that stigma that comes, with mental health sometimes.
Definitely.
And I think if we do that, Jimmy, I don't I don't know what success looks like here other than just doing it, right? Because if we catch that one person somewhere, we'll never know it more than likely. And so I don't think we can even measure success here. I think just getting out there and doing it probably is success in itself.
I think the more we discuss it, the more that we show, and especially I think next time we should peel back the onion into some of our conversations, just to let people know how we talk and what comes up. And, if two vice presidents are having this conversation openly with each other and supporting each other, I think there's a lot to be said in that. And again, I don't use the title as anything more than just the idea that this affects, it could affect your children, your grandchildren could be affected by this whole COVID thing, going from a school to a virtual school. And, maybe you're stressing out over your kids or your wife or your husband or your neighbor or your,
the weather, the thunder.
This has been
awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm telling you, just confirms what we're doing, right?
Yeah.
We always talk about wearing your weather, right? Yeah, in those dark times, which I can see the storms rolling through your glasses, I think.
It's been
Jimmy, I don't want to beat a dead horse here. It's really the kickoff show.
Yep.
But just like you said, I'm more excited as we kind of get more specialized in these episodes and talk about that.
Yeah.
How cool was Scrum for you this year?
Oh, it's fantastic. Yeah.
For those that don't know, it's probably it is anti-Scrum. That's what we kind of joke about. But we started a meeting that we had pretty much every day during the pandemic with our group.
8 a.m. 8 a.m. start.
Honestly, when we quit having those, might have been when we both had an anxiety attack. When Jim and I quit attending Scrum.
Yeah.
But little tips like that, I see as kind of taking a subject, unpacking it, and then hopefully breaking the stigma with it and then ramping out of it, right? And then again, bookending it with resources.
Yep, absolutely. James, with that, I think we've given our audience just enough to let them understand what we're going to be doing. I would imagine that these are going to probably come out like the 7 Habits every 4 to 6 weeks, about 3 to 6.
There's no rules, right? We'll play it by ear, but I think that's kind of what we did with the others, 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah. So
if you have any ideas, just for the audience, drop them in the comments, shoot us an email, text, message. Also, just to reiterate, Jimmy, before we get out of here, is if you are one of those people that want to be those people for other people, that's a lot of people's comment, man. Comment, reach out to us if you're listening on the podcast, wherever you're interacting. Get that to us, man. We're not hard to find.
No,
I don't think so, right?
No.
But chime in, man. Be that support network for someone else, because we haven't even started yet, So
as we say, spread the love, right?
Let's go. Let's go.
There we go, up there. All right. Thanks for tuning in, everybody, to this week's episode of Coffee, Jim and James. We hope it touched you a little bit, and hopefully it helps you get back to do some reflection and see how you can reflect some goodness out into the world and onto yourself. So until next week, we will see you soon. Everybody, please take care and stay safe. See you soon.
Everybody. Thank you so much.
Thanks, James.
You bet, brother.
All right.